Eternals is an odd movie to me, because I really like a lot of aspects of it separately, yet when everything comes together it paints a picture that is unsatisfying. Let me be clear here. I would take 10 Eternals-style movies over the more mediocre showings the MCU has put out, and that is coming from someone who could not care less about the Eternals, like every other comic book fan in existence. Regardless, I like that this movie takes a different tack, unlike other Marvel movies that rely upon safe and formulaic tropes. However, that does not mean I think this movie is great. Does it have potential? Yes. Was that potential achieved?
Oh, I don't think so.
That being said, I don't think this movie needs to be torn asunder and rewritten from the ground up. Instead, a few fixes can make this thing a lot better than what we got. The changes I'd make are pretty fundamental, but as usual, we will be sticking with the same budget and cast, since I don't think either were an issue. For this rewrite though, we'll wield a scalpel instead of a hammer, and adjust what we have instead of starting from scratch. So, let's outline the broad strokes of the movie first, then outline what changes will fix it.
And here we go.
We start with the Eternals arriving on ancient Earth to kick some deviant booty. Then cut to modern day, where our main character Sersi is kicking it with Jon Snow and permanent child Eternal Sprite. Also, Sersi can transmute things into other things, keep that in mind. They're attacked by a deviant who can heal itself, but luckily Icarus rescues them. Flashback. The Eternals fight some deviants and we get Sersi and Icarus's romance jam-packed into one very long sequence. Back in modern day, the squad finds their former leader, Ajak, dead. Sersi inherits the role of Prime Eternal, meeting Arishem for the first time. And yes, Arishem does look cool. Flowers earned, flowers given. Success! Flashback. Thena, another Eternal, goes insane and attacks the others. Stupid. Gilgamesh, her friend, offers to watch her for the rest of eternity. The squad then splits up. In modern day, our reforming squad adds Kingo to the team, then Thena and Gilgamesh. But Sersi meets with Arishem again and finds out that the Eternals aren't actually guardians of new species, they're just caretakers that nurture planets until they're ready to birth a Celestial. Said birth will bust the planet wide open, killing the Eternals and whatever unlucky idiots live there. Our squad recruits Druig. Gilgamesh gets absorbed, just like Ajak did, and the deviant who did it evolves to become Hot.
Nice.
Also, his name is Crow. Hi, Crow. His name is never said aloud, but that's what the credits tell me it is. The squad recruits Phastos, then makes a plan to save Earth. They're gonna combine their power and get Druig to put the baby Celestial to sleep. But in a flashback, Icarus kills Ajak. Then in modern day, he attacks his bros. Sprite sides with Icarus cause she likes him, while the others oppose him because, duh. A final battle ensues. Crow shows up and gets turned into Swiss cheese by Thena. Ow. Sprite stabs Sersi in the back, literally, before getting brained by Druig. Don't worry, she survives. Icarus tries to kill Sersi, but can't bring himself to. So our cast combine their powers and Sersi uses transmutation to abort the Celestial. You know, what's funny is that the only reason she was able to do this is because the power combo thing unintentionally included the Celestial. So essentially, Sersi tricked a baby into killing itself. That's objectively hilarious. Anyway, to eject these guys from the MCU, some hop onto a ship and fly into space, and the rest are kidnapped by Arishem. Then the movie ends. Alright, brevity and snark aside, that wasn't bad. But it can be better. Let's begin. Number 1. Cut the cast. The amount of Eternals is too dang high. Having this many cast members dilutes how much your audience can connect with any one of them. Which is a shame because I liked aspects of what everyone was doing. So to fix this, let's pull a Realm Spinner classic and toss these bad boys in the fly machine. We're gonna combine people, starting with Kingo and Sprite. Sprite is a storyteller, Kingo is an actor. Sprite is going to be the face here, taking on Kingo's narcissism and ability to pew-pew. In addition, I'm going to do a slight adjustment to Sprite's powers. Yes, she can create multiple intangible illusions, or, in this version, she can also create one tangible illusion. But the illusion still can't bleed or cry or poop. If, say, someone hits it in the head with a football, Sprite will have to manually react.
Oh, I'm hurt!
which can be used for hilarious hijinks later. Next up, Phastos and Gilgamesh. Phastos is the engineer, whereas Gilgamesh is super strong but not as strong as Icarus? Anyway, a combo here would sidestep the weak Brainiac trope to create a smart himbo. Gilgamesh will be the face, but will keep Phastos' family. As for Thena, well, that's where our next mix comes in, which is Druig and Ajak. So this one's fun. Obviously Ajak would be the face. I like the idea of the Eternals leader specifically having access to mind control because of the questions it raises about her leadership. Maybe she uses her powers to restrain other members when they step out of line. Maybe Sersi asks Ajak to use her powers to save humanity and she refuses. Maybe I'll circle back to this. Also, side note, Ajak should take responsibility for Thena as her caretaker. Her mind control is the perfect way to quell Thena's madness. For now. Alright, up next, Dane Whitman and nothing. Cut that boy loose, we don't need him. So, our main cast will be Sprite, Gilgamesh, Ajak, Thena, Icarus, Makkari, and Sersi. And speaking of, number 2, Sersi. The director, Chloe Zhao, stated that Sersi was meant to be a gentler, more compassionate superhero. I get the idea. She wanted to show that femininity and heroism aren't mutually exclusive, which is understandable, assuming you're willing to ascribe specific traits to specific genders, which I'm not. But I digress. The problem with that sentiment for this movie specifically is that Sersi is so passive and muted that she gets lost in a cast full of big personalities. For a lot of scenes, Sersi kinda just fades into the background, and that's a problem for a protagonist. So let's fix her. First, Sersi should be a fighter. She's defined by her love for humans, and that love should extend to a ferocious desire to actively protect them. Also, she's basically a state alchemist, which lends itself to some really fun and creative ways of combat. Second, Sersi should be a rebel. In pretty much every flashback we get, she should be clashing with Ajak, interacting with and/or fraternizing with humans, and basically being the punk of the group who goes her own way. Instead of Icarus falling in love with her because of how demure and mindful she is, he should fall in love with her courageous spirit and unrelenting lust for adventure. To that point, Sersi shouldn't be a museum curator when we meet her. Let's put her somewhere dynamic and have her be a marine biologist or an archaeologist. Something more field-oriented and in line with her new personality. Number 3. Lower the stakes. So the crux of the movie is that the world is ending. A celestial is about to pop out of the earth and thus end all life. That's fine for a standalone or Elseworlds type story, but we know Earth isn't gonna explode in some random non-Avengers movie, meaning the stakes are automatically nullified. So to sidestep this, let's change the villain. Okay, so remember Crow?
Hi, Crow.
He elicited way more interesting questions and implications than the movie was willing to address. So why don't we actually address them? And make the central conflict not the Eternals fighting over a baby Celestial, but instead the Eternals fighting over Crow. Once Crow gains sentience, he should immediately regret what he's done and reach some level of understanding for the Eternals' position. But he should also be unwilling to just lie down and die, because he's just now living for the first time. Sersi should quickly connect with this ideal and want to preserve Crow, at the very least with some temporary form of containment, which will lead to our main conflict. Before we dive into said conflict though, let's hit up our next point and... Number 4. Restructure the narrative. Currently, the breakdown of the movie is this. Eternals arrive, Sersi and Sprite in London, Crow attacks, a flashback, the gang find Ajak and Sersi meets Arishem, another flashback, recruiting Kingo, recruiting Thena and Gilgamesh, the revelation about the baby Celestial, recruiting Druig and Gilgamesh's death, recruiting Phastos, Icarus's traitor flashback, the final battle, and then post-credits scenes for Jon Snow and Harry Styles. Let's rearrange this. Starting with... Obviously, this is our intro to the characters. I'm only changing the setting to make it fresher than just London. This will essentially be the same, minus Crow having Ajak's powers. We're breaking up Cersei and Icarus' romance to give it more time to breathe, while adding tension between Cersei and Ajax in terms of the former's freedom and feelings of protectiveness over humanity. Although at this point Cersei is too afraid to stand up to Ajax directly. Then, recruiting Gilgamesh, which is the same as the OG minus Thena. This will continue the romance while building up the aforementioned tension. The upward arc of the Cersei-Icarus relationship should climb at the same rate as the downward arc of Cersei's feelings toward her eternal duties. We can also introduce disagreement here between Cersei and Icarus to foreshadow their future breakup. So this is the Druig section from the OG, except Ajax is less interested in addressing the deviant problem immediately, and more interested in berating the others who have quote-unquote failed her by failing to stop the deviants themselves. The prelude to the fight should be a very emotional scene that's kind of like a mother verbally abusing her children. Only Cersei will stand up to Ajax here, but they'll be interrupted by the deviant attack. And Ajax will die.
Oops!
So like the OG, our squad will split up. But unlike the OG, in this version Cersei plans to leave without facing Ajax. Icarus tells on her, causing Ajax to attack Cersei, but a remorseful Icarus intervenes and stops Ajax from going too far. The relationship between virtually all parties is busted at that point, so the squad goes their separate ways. After capturing Crow, Cersei will inherit the role of Prime Eternal, albeit in this version accidentally by being the closest to Ajax's corpse. Then she, and later the rest of the squad, will learn from Arishem that the Deviants aren't an invasive extermination-level species, but are actually just servants of Arishem who rebelled against his wishes. The Deviants can and do coexist with other creatures on multiple planets, usually after having gained sentience. But Arishem, out of fear and spite, still wants them wiped out. This is just what it sounds like. Our cast debates whether to kill the supposed last of the Deviants and fulfill their purpose, or spare him and deny their creator. After the cast picks sides, the final fight occurs. That is Icarus, Sprite, and Thena versus Cersei, Makkari, and Crow. Thena and Sprite want to avenge Ajax, whereas Cersei and Makkari believe in saving Crow. And Icarus believes that finishing the Deviants is his duty as an Eternal, morality aside. In this fight, Cersei KOs Sprite, then Icarus breaks Makkari's leg to take her out of the running. Thena and Crow face off until Crow uses a lesser version of Ajax's voice and power to calm Thena down. He doesn't kill her though, and instead just restrains her. Crow and Cersei then fight Icarus, who defeats them both. But when Icarus goes to kill Crow, Cersei stands in the way and tells him that he's gonna have to kill her first. And Icarus just can't. In the aftermath, our team will form a fragile alliance based on what transpired. After all, Crow spared Thena and Icarus spared Cersei, so their compassion outweighed their hatred even at their darkest moments. The group decides that they can't stay on Earth since Arishem will come looking for any trace of deviancy. Besides, there are other Eternals out there hunting other deviants who might never learn the truth. So the gang heads into space, hoping to spread the word. And finally, the movie should end how the OG began, with the Eternals, united, arriving on Earth, and Cersei and Icarus remarking on how beautiful their new home is. I mean, that's kind of poetic, am I right or am I right? Eternals is a movie that was close but just missed the mark. If you compile the changes in this video, it seems like a lot, but really most of the adjustments made are just that, adjustments. Which is to say that the potential here, while not fulfilled, wasn't entirely squandered. And it's worth noting that shifting things around, reshaping characters and whatnot is easy for me to accomplish after all is said and done, but actually creating those concepts for me to build upon is the true struggle. So, give this movie some credit, after giving me a lot of credit. And keep in mind that while The Eternals wasn't great, it was maybe closer to greatness than you think. That's all for this one. Like and subscribe because I've got more rewrites, fixes, and essays in the works. And speaking of, for my next rewrite...
Don't you get it? If you die in the game, you die for real.
Until then though, cheers!